Now that we have most of the framework set up, in next subsequent steps, you would see the functionality of the application grow multifold. So let's get started with step 22, where we are adding the functionality to add a new to-do. So we would add a new JSP, todo.jsp, where we would add the form to capture the new to-do details. And we'll also understand the importance of something called redirect. We'll see why it's being used. So let's get started. We want to add a new to do. So what I would need to do is, first thing is go to the list todos.jsp and add a facility to add in a new to do. The way we would do that is by adding a link. So I'll just for now not really care about formatting a lot. So I'll just say br slash, and I've added in a link. A class is equal to button. I mean, CSS works on classes. We are not making use of this class anymore, so even if you had something of this kind, this should be fine. And I'm adding a URL. What's the URL I'm tapping in? Add to do, and I'm saying add. So that's good. Let's now see what would happen. Now we have the add link coming up here. When I click the link, what would happen? It goes to add to do, but we have not implemented anything to accept it there. So let's go ahead and add a add to do method. I would add the add to do method for now in the to do controller itself. Let's bring up the to do controller. We already have a method. I'll just copy that list to dos. So what I'll do is I'll copy the code in there. The URL which we should be using is different. Aha, it says show login page. List to dos, show to do page. And I mean, the name of the method really does not matter. What matters is what is in here. So we want to add a to do. So add to do, and method is equal to request.get. So what we want to do is, we don't really want to show all the to-dos in the add to-do page, so I'll remove the modal attribute, and then I don't need the modal anymore, so I'll delete that as well. And I would do return. I can call this new to-do.jsp, but I'm having a long-term view, and I would want to use the same to-do.jsp for both edit and new. So what I'll do is I'll say to-do. So I'll say return to-do. So return to do. What it does is returns to do, and what does the view resolver do? The view resolver would translate it to todo.jsp. So what we are effectively doing is redirecting it to todo.jsp. So what I'll do is I'll copy the list todos.jsp and call it todo.jsp, and we now have the todo.jsp. So let's not worry about what's in here. I'll just remove everything in the code and just say add a to do in h1. Before we add in a form, let's check if it's working fine. So let's now refresh. Aha, add a to do. That's perfect. So from here, if I click add a to do. So we are bringing up the page, but we don't have the form to add in the to do details yet. So let's add in a form quickly. With any form, the syntax is very simple. So form, and I would add in whatever attributes that I would need. So here I would start off with a simple to do. I'd call it input. Let's add a to do description. So name is equal to description. The type of this particular field is text. So I'll add in type is equal to text, and let's add a submit button. Input type is equal to submit, and value is equal to, I'll want to call this button as add. So that's what we put in the value. That's good. Now we need to add in one more thing on the form. If I don't put an action on any form, what would happen is the form would redirect to the same action from which it came in. What we would also now need to add in is the request method. We don't want to use get. So if I use a get, these parameters would go as part of the URL, but I would want to use post. So what would happen? Let's refresh the page. We have an add button. That's perfect. Learn to write quality code. That's basically what I want to learn. And I click add. That's perfect. Let's see the post method. I'm sending a description, learn to write quality code, but we are getting an error. Request method post is not supported. So you'd see that the request is going to which one? Add to do. So the request is going to add to do, but we are not able to support the post. Why are we not able to support post in the add to do? Because the add to do method only supports the get. So let's now write the add to do method to support the post request as well. One thing you would have already been seeing is that in the same request, in the same controller, we are adding multiple URLs. So we have list to dos, add to dos, everything in this particular controller. So you should always keep thinking if that's the right thing to do. So what we could have done is could have created a new controller called add controller and put these two methods in there. So that's something you should always keep thinking. If as you add new functionality to classes, you should keep thinking, okay, should I move it now to the new class? Should I move it now to the new class? Is it still understandable? Is there any confusion? Okay, keep thinking about it. We'll act on it a little later. Post. Now this is add to do, and here what we want to do is we would want, when user clicks submit on the page. So when user clicks, he enters a value, learn to write quality code, and clicks add. Where do we want to send him to? I would ideally want to send him back to the list page. So the flow is something of this kind. He starts from the list to do's page, clicks add, you enter a to do, and once it's entered, I would want him to go back not to this page, but I would want him to go back to this page with the new to do added in. So let's do that first. So I would want him to go back to where? I would want him to go back to the list to do's page. So first let's do that. So I'm returning him back to the list to do's page, and let's check whether that's working. So now I click add, learn to write quality code, and click add. Aha, it's going back, but it's not showing all the details that we would want to show. Why is it so? What we see that it's going back to the, it's showing the page, it's showing the to-do page, but my to-dos are not being shown properly. That's because what we are doing is we are redirecting to the list to-dos page without setting the modal object. So the to-dos list to-dos page, it needs a modal object to-dos. And to-dos, should we put it in session? Not the right thing, because if it's a very big application, if you put to-dos in session, then the to-dos will be in session for a long time. So what other options do I have? What I would do is, instead of returning to a JSP, so if I say return and directly put in a view name list to-dos.js, list to-dos, what the view resolver does is it returns it to the list to-dos.jsp. But what we can also do is we can return it to the URL. So I'll say I would want to go back to the URL list to do's, and then this particular method would be executed and it would set the modal in and redirect to the JSP. The way you do that is by using redirect list to do's. I would really want you to focus at this point. I would also want you to try couple of times list to do's and redirect list to do's. What is the difference? Try playing around with the request and see. Okay, let's do that again. So now I click add in here, learn to write quality code, click add. You're going back now to the whole thing. If you look at the background down here, you would see that add to do, I'm making a post to the add to do. After the post, we are again redirecting to the list to do servlet. So that's basically what's happening. So when user goes to add to do with a post, so goes to add to do with a post, this is the method which gets invoked, and this redirects to list to do's. So what happens? It redirects to list to do's. So a new request is sent to list to do's. It's a get request. One thing I don't really like in here is the fact that name now is getting passed as part of the, I don't want to pass any session attributes as part of the URL. What I can do is add in something called modal.clear. So when I add in modal.clear, then it would not pass in any of the parameters as part of the URL. So I really hate sending things as part of the URL because there might be some sensitive things in there. So I'll add in a modal map, modal, and let's clear that up and let's see if it's still working fine. Okay, let's refresh the page. As usual, learn to write quality code, add. Okay, one thing is we have not added the learn to quality code to the list of to-dos yet. We have not written the code for that. That's okay. We are really focusing on the code. One thing at a time is what I really love. And here we are focusing on the flow. So the flow is working fine. Now to the list to-dos, we are not passing in a get parameter. That's good. So we are doing add to do. Add to do redirects to list to-dos and we are showing it in. That's perfect. Now that we have the flow ready, we will add in the logic to now adding the to-do to the list of to-dos. we have already a service, right? The to-do service, we already created a method to add a to-do long back. So what I would need to do in add to-do is call that method. So service dot add to-do. The name for now, for some time, we'll hard code it in 28 minutes. I can get it from the model, but let's, for now, keep hard coding it until we get to the security module. The description, where is the description present in? The description is present in the to do. How do I get, it's present in the form. And one of the ways I could have got the description in is by adding in, remember, annotation, request param, string, description. So now I'll get the description in because that's the name which we gave in the JSP, I guess. So yeah, description, DSC. So I have the same name, description. Target date, for now I will hard code it. We'll add in a little later. So new date, so that would be today, java.util, and is done is, I'm adding a new to do, so it would be false. So that's very good. Now let's reload the page, click add, learn to write quality code. Is it here? That's perfect. So we now have a fourth to do in here. ID is 4, user is in 28 minutes, description is learn to write quality code, and the target date is today. Don't worry about it, we'll work on it a little later. Is done is false. So that's really good. So now we are able to add a to do to the to do page. So we are able to now go to a new to do page, add the to do, and come back to the list to do's page. This has been an interesting step, I would say, where we discussed how to add the functionality to add in a new to do. We learned the importance of model.clear, redirect to list to do's, and we played around with the application a little bit, and we were able to finally add in a new to do. That's a lot of stuff you have learned. Until the next step, bye bye.